Chapter 6407. The endless stream of freight trains did not stop until it got dark. Charlie and Duncan observed their operating rules. Generally, after the diesel locomotive towed the entire train of freight cars into the freight yard of the terminal, it would be unhooked in the freight yard, then turn around via another line and tow another train of cars away. The cars full of goods left in the freight yard would be towed by the dispatching locomotive to a factory building built on multiple rails for unloading. After unloading, the goods would be inspected by customs and then transported to the bulk cargo loading. And they were unloading terminals by freight trucks in the port for loading. To the southeast of the freight yard, there is also a large-scale railway marshalling yard. If the goods imported to the port of Casablanca need to be transported by rail, they will be assembled here after completing the customs clearance procedures, and then towed by the locomotive to the destination. This means that the freight train itself is isolated from the interior of the port. The goods sent here have not yet gone through the customs clearance process, while the goods waiting for transfer here have already completed the customs clearance procedures. So the management of the freight train yard is relatively lax. After nightfall, Charlie and Duncan had dinner at the hotel. In the restaurant, Charlie saw a young waiter from China. So he asked him, "Young man, do you know what language the locals use more often?" The waiter said, "Sir, ordinary people here speak Arabic more often. And civil servants in government departments and school faculty and staff basically speak French." Charlie nodded. Morocco has been under French colonial rule for a long time, and French is very popular in the government and education system. However, Charlie does not know much about French. His parents taught him some when he was a child, but he learned it in a short time and it took a long time. So Charlie's understanding of French is limited to some basic terms. So he thanked the waiter, and after the waiter left, he asked Duncan, "Can Inspector Lee speak French?" Duncan nodded and said, "Because I deal with people from countries surrounding the United States and European countries all year round. I have learned French and Spanish, and I am quite proficient in them." Charlie breathed a sigh of relief. "That's good, otherwise I would have to find a translator now." Duncan hurriedly said, "Mr. Wade, I don't know anything about Arabic." Charlie said, "It's okay, we are going to deal with port staff tonight. The port is especially important to Casablanca. The management positions there should have received local elite education since childhood, and French must be their first language." Duncan nodded and said, "If they speak French, there will be no problem." After dinner, the two took a taxi to the management office of the Port Railway, which is responsible for the transportation scheduling of the entire Port Railway. Duncan looked at the door of the management office and asked Charlie with some doubts, "Mr. Wade, are we going to go in directly?" Charlie nodded. He had just used his spiritual energy to check the situation inside the entire management office. At this time, in addition to a security guard in charge of security work outside the management office, there were a total of 9 people working inside. 6 of them were in the largest room on the second floor, which should be their dispatch room. The remaining 3 were in different offices. Charlie's idea was very simple. He directly used psychological hints to control the security outside the door. Asked him who was the highest person in charge here. He then asked him to take the 2 people to find the other party. So, he said to Duncan, "Inspector Lee, when you see me patting the other person's shoulder later, just ask him in French who is in charge here, and then let him take us there." "Okay." Duncan nodded. He knew that Charlie had great magical powers, so he didn't need to ask more questions. He just followed his instructions. The 2 of them came to the door of the management office. The security guard outside the door saw that they were 2 Asians, so he shouted to them in broken English, "Leave! Leave!" Seeing that the security guard directly wanted to drive the 2 away, Charlie smiled and said in English, "Brother, don't you remember me?" As he said that, he used a stream of spiritual energy to pass into the other person's brain. And he walked up to him and patted him on the shoulder like an old friend.